My pleasure to introduce our esteemed panelists to you. We have quite an interesting mix of experience in academia, industry, and entrepreneurship today. Let me first introduce Dr. K Rangarajan, who's Professor, Head Center for MSME Studies, and Head of Kolkata Campus at Indian Institute of Foreign Trade. Dr. Rangarajan holds a Master's in Commerce with Management Specialization and has remained first class throughout his academic career. He holds university rank for the top performance in his master's degree, completed doctoral degree, and has many research papers and articles to his credit. He has guided many doctoral theses and actively involved in the research of global business strategy. He's an accredited management teacher conferred by All India Management Association and a member of several professional bodies, including AIMM Australia. His expertise includes business strategy, strategic planning in general and internationalization of SMEs, and management of trade support institutions, including trade promotion organizations. His areas of interest are organizational restructuring, corporate and business level strategies, and cluster development. Next, we have with us Mr. Rajat Wahi, partner, Deloitte India, and consumer head consulting, Deloitte Touche Tomatsu India LLP. Rajat has over 25 years of experience in CPG and consulting. Prior to Deloitte, he has worked with global consulting and CPG companies at senior management positions in KPMG and Strategy Consulting India, Faces Cosmetics Canada and India, Revlon Cosmetics, and ITC Moscow. His areas of specialization include corporate strategy, route to market and entry strategy, sales and trade marketing, distributor management, shopper insights, Salesforce effectiveness, and SFA. He's an MBA in marketing and international business at University of Akron, Ohio, and BCom honors SRCC. Mr. Venkat Nott is CEO at Vinculum, a seasoned entrepreneur passionate about creating high-powered teams and disruptive SaaS products and business models. In Vinculum, he's the founder CEO and takes care of corporate strategy, global sales, investor relations, and fundraising. Through Vinculum, Venkat aims to help 4,000 plus brands to scale globally by 2024, and we will be talking about how he plans to do that. He has lived and worked in multiple countries in Asia, including New Zealand, Australia, Hong Kong, Singapore, and India. He speaks in English and 6 Indian languages and is an alumnus of REC Calicut and IIM Bangalore. Next, we have Deep Bajaj, founder of Sirona Hygiene, an award-winning social entrepreneur. Deep Bajaj is the founder and CEO of Sirona, a modern, intimate, and menstrual hygiene brand committed to solving those feminine hygiene issues that are not adequately addressed. Since its foundation, the company has been disrupting the face of feminine intimate hygiene space in the country with problem-solving products like P-Buddy, India's first FUD, Stand and Pee, followed by Sirona menstrual cups, tampons, etc. The team has also innovated many products like India's first herbal period pain relief patches, oxo-degradable disposable bags, anti-chaffing rash cream, colored biodegradable sanitary pads, etc. In Sirona, Deep leads major corporate decisions and manages cross-functional operations. Since 2016, Deep has won multiple recognitions and awards, like the winner of Amazon Global Propel Accelerator Program 2021, Business World 40 Under 40 2020, and Young Entrepreneur Award 2020, Economic Times Startup of the Year under Social Enterprise, ET Top 25 Startups of 2019, TIE the Spirit of Manufacturing Award, and National Entrepreneurship Award by the Ministry of Skill Development and Entrepreneurship, Government of India. A BCom graduate from Delhi University and a marketing graduate from Australian National University, Canberra, Australia. His professional experience spans over 14 years. Welcome all of you, and it's a pleasure to have you on this session. So to start off, I will just give a brief on the topic we are discussing today, and then I will come to our esteemed panelists for their views. As far as cross-border e-commerce is concerned, it is actually a symptom representing the new opportunity that companies have today to be able to trade not within their domestic country alone, but also going across border and serving other countries with their products, irrespective of the scale they have. As a retailer, cross-border e-commerce essentially is selling goods from a website of a national store in from one country to another country or another party. So cross-border e-commerce can be a B2C model, a B2B, or a C2C model. According to Zion Market Research, global cross-border B2C e-commerce market had a revenue of around $562.1 billion in 2018 and is predicted to reach $4.19 trillion by 2027, showing a CAGR of around 28.4% during this period. The key drivers: growing internet penetration, growing propensity for e-commerce, secure payment options, rise in globalization, some of the prime drivers that are opening up this market, opening up, therefore, opportunities for sellers. E-commerce is also likely to be the fastest growing segment in retail in India in the coming decade, growing its share of total retail from 3% to 10 to 15%. By implication, it is therefore also likely to play a larger role in our cross-border trade and business. India crossed $1 billion in exports for cross-border e-commerce in 2020. Categories like handicraft, home and linen, bed sheets, curtains, upholstery, and apparel are currently enjoying strong demand abroad. And we are interested to see how this category mix can also expand in the coming years. Amazon is, of course, one company which has been a front runner and widely covered when it comes to leveraging this model, because it allows its sellers on its platform to sell to US and UK customers, but there are definitely other companies who are helping exporters now, and they are coming up in this market. The COVID-19 pandemic has precipitated a drastic shift in consumer behavior in favor of online channels. But even as consumers are opening up to cross-border shopping, companies are looking at ways to leverage this medium because it gives them an opportunity, especially for SMEs, to expand globally and even bypass long channels and directly reach customers. For instance, over 50% of customers have started using D2C channel for buying consumable or durable products during the COVID-19 pandemic. But when we come to major challenges, they include lack of knowledge of regional tax regulations, when I'm talking about companies, compliance issues, data protection laws, payment and return related issues, import and export legislations, etc. While your product communication has reached the intended audience, building your brand is a different game altogether. So if cross-border e-commerce is handling your reach issue, is it also able to effectively manage your branding challenge? Can you actually build international brands? This is something we will discuss during this session. Customers, on the other hand, cite issues such as high prices, delayed deliveries, low trust in terms of quality, cross-currency challenges, etc. So from today's webinar, the key takeaways which we are looking for are the product market opportunities in cross-border e-commerce for Indian brands, particularly SMEs, payment-related issues, regulatory challenges like data protection, export controls, etc. across markets, policy and regulatory interventions which are needed to propel cross-border e-commerce in India, online channel strategy and how to build a direct-to-consumer channel for cross-border e-commerce, the role of branding, the opportunities, practical solutions, problems while promoting your brand across markets, and technology interventions that could propel the growth of this sector in the coming years. To start off, I would like to come to Mr. Rajat Wahi and ask him, so how do you view the current global growth trend and potential for cross-border e-commerce, the key drivers, and where do you think India stands presently in leveraging this trend? Mr. Rajat Wahi, over to you.
Sure. So thank you firstly for having me on this, and great to be on this panel and to discuss these points. Obviously, this is a hot subject right now, given the overall sort of size of the opportunity, the scale that everybody is looking at. Clearly, e-commerce is the buzzword for the last 18 months, has been for the last 5-7 years, but nothing accentuated that or nothing sort of pushed that forward more than the various lockdowns we had over the last year, where the brick and mortar retail was quite disrupted, and clearly that opportunity is only as a result, what we saw, and as I heard in some other panels talk about it, that 2030 literally happened in 2020 from an e-commerce and technology point of view, right? What every company was sort of dabbling with e-commerce, they had a presence on the platforms or some small part of their own business, but 90% of India, was pretty much focused on offline. Of retail is focused on offline retail, brick and mortar retail. But the lockdowns and the lack of access to malls and high streets and different types of sort of brick and mortar really pushed people to try out e-commerce. Even the ones who were laggards, who were not really very easy to adopt, they've got used to browsing online, they've got used to buying online, they've also got used to paying online, and it has changed. That doesn't mean that we will become an e-commerce predominant market. Even in China, despite all the hype and all the sort of growth that e-commerce has seen. Online only represents 25%, 30% of the total retail. The rest of retail is still offline. So in India, we may go from 95% to 90% or even 85% in the next 5 years. But clearly, the growth trajectory is phenomenal. So I think that this is likely to grow. And what's also interesting is that the platforms that are building up today, whether it's Amazon, Flipkart, other platforms, global, because e-commerce and because internet is global, access is global, it allows consumers from anywhere to be able to reach out onto these platforms and buy. And if you heard what Jeff Bezos said in his last visit to India, that he wants $10 billion of exports to happen out of India in the next 5 to 6 years, just primarily through their platform. So even if that's a very, very ambitious goal, but I think that's really the size of the opportunity. And today, while we may be ranked in the top 10 or 12 in terms of cross-border commerce, but we are nowhere close to where China is today, or a US is today, or even a UK market is, or even Israel is. So I think there's a huge opportunity for us to leverage that. We're a technology savvy country. We have very, very young population that's very, very easily adapting. We have the ability. Many of the e-commerce sites are powered out of India. So why can't we then leverage that and say, why can't we make it, so I think the opportunity really is for us to streamline our businesses, streamline the regulatory environment, to really make it easy for shoppers anywhere in the world to order products from India, return products to India, get, pay to companies in India. And that will just open up the whole SME market to basically the global consumers.
Great. Thank you, sir. Okay, so which segments and markets do you think are most promising for SMEs if they want to leverage this model, and why?
So I think that obviously the hardest categories are perishables. Anything which is non-perishables is a good category. So it could be packaged goods, it could be skincare. Ayurveda is a big emerging theme, not just in India but in many global markets. Natural products is a global skincare and products that aid beauty and health is a big category. Again, in apparel and accessories, we are the second largest apparel manufacturer in the world. Why can't we have a very, very large apparel business out of India? Electronics may be difficult because we don't have that kind of scale today in electronic manufacture. But now with so many PLIs and with all the focus of the government to drive even electronics, why can't electronics, etc., be made here as well and exported from here? So I think anything other than perishables, which becomes a bit difficult to sell online, the returns and the process of customs is great. So packaged foods, packaged consumer goods, apparel, accessories, anything around the whole naturals theme are all fantastic categories. And in many categories, we are already very, very large player as an overall producer globally, but we are not a very large exporter. So how do we, these are the categories we should go after.
Right. Thank you so much, sir, for the insight. I would like to now come to Mr. Venkat Nott, that having decided that a company would like to leverage this channel of cross-border e-commerce, how should a company strategize its approach, and what are the major adaptations to be made as opposed to selling in the domestic market, or exporting from a B2B perspective, because a lot of people are used to the bulk export kind of model?
Thanks, Virat. Thanks for having me here, Venkat. The question which you raised, of course, has many contours, right? Depending upon the category, the nuances are different. And the first step I would think is, there are some straightforward models which are available for brands. Okay, so if I segment the market into, let's say, every category, there is traditional brands which are looking at increasing their presence from small numbers online to a significant number. So what that means is maybe single digit numbers to 30 to 40% online. So in a domestic market, of course, they're looking at being more, adopting more omni-channel strategies, selling on marketplaces, launching D2C brands as a variant, right? So which can bypass the traditional models and go direct to customer. So these are things which traditional brands are attempting. And once you do that, then the opportunity, of course, can also be global, right? It doesn't have to be in a particular market. The second is every category there are D2C brands emerging. Means we have Deep joining us here. who has disrupted, identified a niche there, but even in regular spaces, every category is being disrupted by brands, right? And I would safely say it's a global phenomenon. There are D2C brands emerging everywhere. But what that does is it also gives access to a huge market, right? So if you have a great, good quality product, which is packaged well, which is where the aesthetics are also thought through, instead of just a bulk shipment kind of a thought process, thinking about the nuances required. Then the first step is, of course, you're looking at the attractiveness of a market. Which market should I go to? And once I decide that, what are the nuances required for the product to succeed there? Now, the beauty of this is, if you're thinking of it as a global market, somebody like an Amazon itself can take you into every market where they're present. Now, when you think of other channels, if I look at some countries in Southeast Asia, a Lazada or players like Tokopedia and Shopee can play a similar role because they are present in multiple markets. And when I say they're present in multiple markets, all the business models that you see from a marketplace like Amazon, they are actually mimicking and making it available. Let me take that word out, mimicking out. They're actually making sure that they're adapting for the local market and they're able to offer those business models. So it is a win-win there, right? So if you have the right product, and if you're able to look at if you're able to manufacture at a cost model where there is arbitrage from including the shipment becomes a significant charge, particularly when you're shipping from India to different places. So as long as the cost economics work, then the other elements become very interesting. See, technology has completely flattened the earth a long time back, and SaaS products like us, we have ready integrations to marketplaces and logistics companies in practically multiple countries, Southeast Asia, Middle East, US, etc. We are extensively present. So what that does is a brand can easily start listing their products into the marketplaces, and they are able to manage orders, inventory sitting in one place, right? So what does that that takes away your technology challenge to a large extent, right? So you don't have to think about which marketplace should I sell to, how do I integrate to them, how do I manage my orders, who will ship on my behalf. So all of that is already available on the platform as a default. Then you think about, I still need a presence in the market, right? Which means when I say presence, I need to keep the goods somewhere, right? Can I do dropship from India? Is it practical for me to do it? Does the cost economics allow me to do it, right? Because if it's a low cost product, when I say low cost, I'm not saying less expensive, I'm saying more as a unit cost. It may not be practical to ship unit by unit. You have to think of what is the minimum order, or the minimum quantity which I need to send. So one of the options people have is that you could easily have a consignment of goods kept in either with the marketplace or with a logistics company or with a distributor in the target market. And from where you could list the products onto the channels of choice, and you can use the logistics company to ship it out on your behalf. So practically, you are operating like a local company just because the technology has kind of disintermediated the whole thing to make it very easy for you to do it. So the step one is to know which market. So step two is to know when the tech is taken out of the equation, frankly. Then the third aspect of this is if I need to get the money back to where I am. So do I need a partner to do it? Or do I need to work with somebody who can represent me and be a seller on my behalf, and who can get the money back to me? So this part you can think of it at multiple levels. There are players who are IOR and partners who are essentially importers on record on your behalf, who can get the goods into the country, take care of compliances, etc. And then there are partners who can actually represent you and be a distributor in the target market, and who can actually sell on your behalf. So which means they can keep the goods, they can sell on your behalf, and they can ship on your behalf. So what that does is you actually operate like a local company in many countries. Sorry for a long answer, but what I'm trying to say is when somebody like us, what we are doing is to create that ecosystem as well. So if people buy our product, they get the product, they also get the ecosystem along with it to go into multiple countries. So the beauty of being able to, if I have a strong product, I actually can look at which country do I go to rather than be worried about, can I actually do this, right? And I can actually be a local player. So that's where I think the industry is headed. I'm not saying there are no challenges. I'm not saying that people today are doing such volumes in India that they're saying, hey, I have got so much business here. If I'm getting a little bit more business in a particular country, that doesn't interest me. But I think it will interest them because the opportunity is so big that if not today, in 6 months' time or 9 months' time or 12 months' time, they will see that, hey, somebody else is doing big volumes here. And once there, you don't need to set up big bases like before. You don't have to target offline like before. Digital actually gives you the privilege of testing inexpensively and being able to go into different markets. I'll let the other people speak and carry on what I'm saying, but I'll keep going here. I just want to bring other perspectives we can tie in and add more there.
Sure. Thank you so much. That's quite a useful perspective you have given. From here, I would like to come to Deep Bajaj and ask you, as a practical entrepreneur who has been leveraging cross-border e-commerce, what has your experience been on leveraging this medium?
I'd say, the kind of growth we've been able to get because of just selling online in itself has been incredible, right? These were innovative products that we were trying to sell. To be able to sell it offline would have meant crores and crores of rupees being available to set the distribution, spread the word. Online simplified all of that. And international market further, expanded the category size for us. So earlier, we were only selling in India. Now, because of Amazon, we are selling in US, UK, Germany, just from sitting here. So, in a lot of ways, we are no more a D2C brand, an Indian D2C brand. We are a D2C brand solving problems for women all across the world. Now, if there are three parts to this puzzle, like Venkat sir said or Rajat sir said earlier, there are three parts. One is to find your own distributors, to find the customer, to take care of logistics. To a very large extent, all of that has been taken care of, at least in the markets where we are selling by, Amazon in our case. And in other parts of the world, I'm sure there are other players where we'll go. But I think the area where if some help can be extended, it will be very helpful is all these compliances, to be able to stock the product and to be able to take it back into the country. Those are the areas where if we work, world is the playground for brands like us. Yeah. Right, setting from here, we do 3,000, 4,000 orders in the US, which otherwise one considers is a very clean country, but P-Buddy, which is our stand-in P funnel, sells there, right? So there is potential all over the world. The only thing that we need is maybe some of these regulations can become simpler, especially from a person who is able to make the unit economics work. If I'm selling one order, I think life will become very simple for brands. And a lot of us have the range, have the products, have the quality. They've been accepted in India. We understand, customer service very, very well. If we are able to get the platform, we can really scale to 10x from where we are within no time.
Any significant challenges on the customer end, brand perception challenges, or how you got that popularity or the message across to customers?
Yeah. Well, I think it's today nobody's here trying to make a quick buck. You will serve Indian customer with equal dedication, and just the face of the customer, the color of the customer, or the location of the customer has no bearing. We are in Delhi, we're shipping all over the country. Similarly, I'm shipping in US, I'm shipping in UK, I'm shipping in Germany. Do they perceive the product good or bad? Not really. There are many trash brands in their countries as well. What they're looking for is a good brand, which when they buy, gives them the same promise that their advertising is promising. As long as you're doing that, your country is insignificant. At least in our case, we've not faced that. And we've been able to sell innovative products only. Like, again, one of the products that we sell from here is our disposal bags, condom disposal bags. How do you throw your condoms? Now, it's not that there must not be solutions available here, but our products is perfect size. It's good to feel. It's oxidegradable. Customers trust us. So I don't see it's a perception. You just give us the platform and just make, stocking and selling easy. Rest, I think, customer communication will take care of.
Great. That's very heartening to hear. I will now come to a little macro perspective, and I would like to ask Dr. Rangarajan, sir, to tell us how do you see the potential impact of cross-border e-commerce on India's vision for enhancing its exports to $1 trillion? So over to you, sir.
Yeah, thank you to the panelists, and good afternoon to all of you and all the participants. See, e-commerce, I think for now more than 15 years, I'm consistently talking about this. The first official report, if you make a Google search on e-commerce, the cross-border issues, we published it in 2011, I think, along with Wiki, eBay and all, wherein we took the first thing to see, because of the software piracy issue which was coming up, as to how India is better placed, so that it can take advantage of that and further the e-commerce. We started talking about it, but you see, first it was China which was dominating. Now you find even Vietnam, Cambodia, etc. Everyone is crossing us in the cross-border transactions. Of course, see, the domestic market, thanks to the COVID lessons, it is going on, growing, and I think it's about to further go to grow. But when it comes to cross-border, I'm still, though there are a lot of potential, See, there is no doubt about it. If you look into one of the simple statistics, which talks about the growth of even B2C only in e-commerce cross-border, it is always more than even the overall, the way in which the world trade is growing. See, it is just more than 3 times or 4 times it is growing. But whether we were able to encash upon it. Yeah, definitely. See, we have a lot of good, I would say, potential, and there are people like Deep is there, Mr. Venkat is there. There are people who are taking advantage of it. Now, I'm looking at as a scale, given the India's size, what scale we are trying to encash. Are we doing it? If we are not, why? What is the problem? Is there any ecosystem which is still to be developed? Of course, we are great. Digitalization is happening, everything. But when it comes to, this is what I always tell whenever I was talking to policymakers also. See, let us simply understand cross-border trade as a simple trade transaction. There is an exporter, there is an importer. Simple. And there are players who are there. Now, what is going to be there in the e-commerce exports? Are we able to engage properly in this particular transaction? See, if you look into India's export basket, it is still dominated by the traditional SME products, which are more suitable for e-commerce also, like what Virat was talking about when he started. See, we talk about the leather, then the handicrafts, then food products which can be consumed, then apparels. These are the ones, gems and jewelry. These are the ones which are dominating the e-commerce also, and that is what is consisting of our export basket also. So now I'm talking about how do we convert some of the traditional exports towards the cross-border exports, and how the e-commerce can be leveraged, the way in which we have successfully leveraged it in the domestic market. There is a huge potential. But still, I will be talking about some of the important governance which is acting as a barrier, though the government has come out with still the draft policy, the first version, second version, third version, this is on. Because the synchronized participation of the mediating players is going to be very important to make the e-commerce, especially for cross-border, successful. Right? Why China is doing well? Because they were able to do the synchronization faster than what we are doing. See, for simple example, in any kind of an international transaction, you know, the central bank is involved, the customs is involved, the logistics players are involved. Here, one more person is going to be involved, that is the platform. Now, if a proper ecosystem is not being dictated, if it is not being given, prescribed, then what happens is the individuals, they go for a trial and error. And then you may find that big players like Amazon and others may be trying to shape up the kind of a ecosystem which is required. See, that is one danger for a country like that. Right? This is what again and again, but thanks to the COVID, that you might have seen that in your own cities, there are a lot of small level players who have come together and they have started using the similar digital platform and reaching out to the consumers. Will we be able to replicate it, especially the SMEs? Given the simple nature of SMEs of India, where they always feel their product is excellent, the market is supposed to consume it. See, this is the problem. Their product is excellent. I'm not denying that. But can you assume that the market is going to consume it? I think interestingly, you have asked about branding in the next, I think, lead. That is again a barrier for me. Why I'm not able to brand? Because I'm not able to go and read the same kind of market and then try to improve upon it. As far as if you ask me about the opportunity, what is there, and whether India will be able to achieve its vision of that 1 trillion through the cross-border trade also, of course, it is going to be there. The earlier we get the final policy, e-commerce policy, though, because you know that, especially for SMEs which have lack of trust, the exchange issue, the digital issues in digital signatures, digital transactions, realization of the money, etc. One of the reasons why Amazon was able to do it, they are assuring that your money will be there. But at what cost? That I, as an entrepreneur, I start thinking about it. Okay, I'll be getting my money. At what cost I am getting my money back? Am I losing out on my margin, which otherwise I'll be able to get? See, there are such questions. Here, one more danger what I'm seeing is, since I'm part of some of the state government initiatives also, yesterday I was in one of the state government discussions, even they are very much ready to give incentivized facilitation centers to be set up in their states. So long and so forth, the facilitation centers are decentralized and dispersed in terms of ownership. I don't think there is any problem. If it is going to be the big players who are going to grab, then probably what may happen is the platform will dictate the transaction rather than the importers and exporters having a fair play. So see, there are a lot of potential. At the same time, it is a real careful kind of a thinking with which the policy prescription is also required. That is my view, of course, based on both the exporters' experience and the policy discussions, whatever is happening, based on that, I'm just talking about it. Otherwise, definitely, we are always saying that it's a huge opportunity, huge opportunity. To what extent we have encashed it, still that question mark continues. Mainly because of, see, one simple thing is the return policy. Have we defined it? Why we are taking more than now? It is more than 5 years, 6 years about which we are always saying that I am an exporter, you are an importer, I am sending it, you don't like it. If it is in a domestic market, you have the free return policy, etc. Can I go to it when it comes to a foreign transaction? So I am exporting to Germany. The Germany customer is not interested in my product. Then what should I do? What cost with which I'll be bringing it back? Who is going to bear it? Still, we are having a lot of conditionalities with which we are defining the return policies, etc. I think those ends, if we tie it up, the moment we tie up, you will find that the accelerating growth will always be there. That is one of the beauty of India. See, nobody thought that the digital, the e-commerce domestic market in India will be growing in this kind of a size, right? Because the moment you get that kind of a confidence and the surety, you will find that there is no stoppage of Indian entrepreneurs and their wonderful ways of getting into the different markets. That is my first view. I think further discussion, I'll be definitely taking part for that. Yeah.
Thank you so much, sir, for that those opening remarks. I'd like to come to Venkat again and ask you, there's a discussion which we had earlier as well while we were discussing this session about the kind of approaches you see around the world on how countries are supporting this model for their exporters, and what inspiration that has for India in your experience.
So thanks again. See, I think countries are going to a lot of extent to help the brands, right? So one of the things is, one of the fears of cross-border is brands don't know what is there on the other side, like what Dr. Ranga also was talking about. And means, of course, entrepreneurs like Deep are wired to say that we'll find a way to succeed, right? Means I also think the same way. So what, we'll find the answers. But the fact of life is there is a lot of, if there is a method by which we can assure and we can help establish the confidence in the consumer that, here is a quality product. And if there is something which needs support, if somebody is able to handhold. Now, this can happen in the form of A, branding. Okay, B, people giving inputs on the market even before you go. C, giving connections before you go. D, incentives which the government can offer for the brands to go international and scale. So let's take in terms of information. Information wise, of course, there is a decent amount of information, and paid information is definitely you can look at. But from an e-commerce perspective, it is still evolving. Okay, data. Even if I go into a Statista, which is one of the tools I use as well, the data can be overwhelming in saying what are they talking about. The size, the category size, etc. And you need some time to actually match up the dots and say that, okay, this is what is the correct picture. So there is evolving information there, I would say. But the second aspect in terms of what a country like New Zealand does. If you take New Zealand, I've had the opportunity to live in Australia, New Zealand, Singapore, Hong Kong, like you said in the introduction. So New Zealand has people who are identified for actually marketing categories of products from New Zealand, who have, it's almost, unlike a government ambassador kind of role, here it is a hardcore, aggressive, international salesperson kind of a profile. Okay, so which means they actually sit down and look at, how do we establish the brand? What connections are required in the target market? How do we make sure the made in New Zealand is recognized with quality? So their care is sit around facilitating and helping the brand to scale. Okay, so which means there is an organization supporting the brands to go international. And if I look at a country like Singapore, they do the same thing. They go a few steps further. Okay, they have an organization and they actually deploy people in different countries where they're actually there in the target market. Even in India, there were a team of people who are actually meeting startups, meeting the VC ecosystem, looking at how do we get the funding for the brands, how do we establish the brands in the target market. And the steps they go further is there is a digital productivity grant by which you can actually buy certain software, hardware, etc. for the people, where the government will pay you year on year, right? The second thing is there is a body called ESG, where we have the privilege of being part of as an empaneled vendor, where anyone with more than 30% ownership of in Singapore, brands are actually given a monthly subscription where the government pays on your behalf for technology, for marketing credits. The key point there is you should actually use the money to expand outside Singapore. Okay, so which means the whole aspect is internationalization. So they started with it was a 2-year program where about $17 million, was it a little bit more? Sorry, I'm mixing the numbers. I think it is 3 times that number. So they had outlined a sizable amount of contribution from the government, where they kept it for helping the brands to scale internationally. And 70% was being borne by the government out of whatever subscription fee you pay. Now, the interesting aspect is during COVID, they made it 90%. So in fact, for a year, the government was paying 90%. So which means somebody like Deep wants to go into 6 countries. That means all the aspects of listing on the marketplace, cataloging plus technology to do it, making sure the money comes back to him, all of that is being paid by the government. Imagine the kind of support that gives to brands to scale. And that if we can take some snippets of that. One thing I'm clear is the government, particularly the current government, is all out to and create the exports, right? It's very, and there is enough money earmarked for this. And I have had discussions with some of the government departments. So I think money is earmarking money is not the issue, channelizing it, making sure it goes to the right hands, making sure that brands can be enabled to support. I think if we can implement some of these, I'm sure you will find many of the brands going, very, very fast. So I think I'll stop again, but these are some of the observations which I think could be very interesting.
Right. On a related front, I'll come to Mr. Rajat Wahi. Sir, you would obviously agree that India as a manufacturing hub is aiming for global recognition, but it's not yet to the level where we would like it to be. So how do you think the government can intervene to ensure that India's brand equity as a nation is strengthened and it consequently helps our brands in this cross-border e-commerce?
I think that, and this is a conversation, we've also had with various government, departments. I think you have to pick and choose your battle, right? If you look at what Korea did, Japan did, what other countries, they're going after specific industries and putting a lot of their might behind that. So Korea in electronics, automobiles, Japan over the years, and again, technology, but specifically looking at consumer technology, now obviously evolving into a more higher end play around data centers, etc. So I think we will have to figure out what is important for us. Today, for example, if I just take apparel and accessories as an example, today we are a very large exporter of that. I think what is it? It contributes, I think 7 or 8% to GDP. It's overall 15% to the overall output. Now that could be a very large play, right? Where you have to brand. So the government then gets involved in bringing up the capability of the industry, but also branding it as India as a large player there, so that globally we get recognized. Because you can't fight on every front, because other countries are also trying to do that. You have to choose 2-3 areas where the government sees that, okay, it's a large employer, huge further, future potential, not just of employment, but also of growth, good natural resources to enable that, so we can source for that. And I think you have to choose those two, three industries, or maybe even 2 to begin with, and really make them very, very critical, brand them along with the partners. So we did the Expo 2020 right now in Dubai. Which industry did we make to, stand out over there? I think that's what it is, because, as we try and just fight on every front, nothing will get done. And we will just, again, be, I think in 5 years, but I think we have to learn from countries who have done that very, very smartly and said, okay, here's what we want to be branded as. And here are the 2 industries or 3 industries that we really want to focus on. If it's automobile parts, if it is, if it's skincare, if it's hygiene, where do we have capability to scale up? Where is a large employer, and where do we have technology as a partner in that? And then go after that, create the hubs and create the branding. Because today, small companies can't go and do global branding. It's just prohibitive. But jointly, along with the India part, and I think India was doing that very well when a few years ago when I was in the UK, where they were doing a lot of these India festivals, a food festival, and we did sort of designer festival. But those are very subscale businesses, right? You have to say, okay, what are the big ones we have to go after? How do we build a plan on that? Learn from other countries. We have good case studies of how Korea has done it, how Japan has done it, how China has done it for so many of their sectors, and then use that model, adapt it for India and the playbook, and then take that out. That's how I would sort of recommend that, and do it end to end then on that front. We also talked about single window clearance. Why can't that be done to enable some of that stuff? But in spite of that, one of the main things has to be that the country needs to get recognized for those categories, right? Where we are become, so that the moment a consumer is thinking, or a retailer is thinking, or any other wholesaler or distributor is thinking, so okay, I can trust this because this is the strength of that country.
Right. Thank you, sir. I would now request Dr. Rangarajan to also stress on the aspect of branding, because the cross-border e-commerce space, at least to me, from where I view it as a layman, is that it's highly overcrowded, and there's a proliferation of private labels today. It seems that brand equity is not the same as it used to be in the relatively offline world, which we had maybe even a decade back. So how can brand building this challenge, which Deep apparently seems to be pretty comfortable with, but how do you feel it can be handled by SMEs today?
Yeah, see, I go with what Mr. Rajat's thinking is, because here also, when it comes to e-commerce, especially as I said, we are dealing with labor-intensive, unorganized sectors, products which are more sellable in the overseas market, right? That is how we are placed as far as India is concerned. So naturally, country branding is going to be the first step, rather than the individual firms getting in and then do their branding, etc., which is going to be a huge task. We may have definitely success stories. There's no doubt about it. So you may have Hindujas of Bangalore has developed the brands, and now they are a great brand in apparel. Some of the guys in Tirupur might have done it. See, these are exceptions. See, let us talk about the major, the number of firms which are there. So probably one of the efforts should be country branding. See, that is where the IBEF was mandated with. See, if you remember, when IBEF got started, India Brand Equity Fund, it is basically to create country branding, because we know that most of our export baskets are belonging to these kind of small and medium enterprises, wherein brand building will be difficult unless otherwise they bring it towards this. In fact, I would suggest, given the, if at all we want to brand it, first, the government initiative should be to organize some of the e-fairs. See, now it is happening, right? But the e-fairs are not that much being propagated by the government, sponsored by the government, allowing the people to showcase through a three-dimensional kind of this thing, etc., which most of the developing countries have already started doing, right? Especially, I think people in gems and jewelry have already started experiencing the success of it by participating in the online platform e-fairs, right? Wherein you can showcase, and then you can see, you can have some kind of a dialogue, etc. That should be, I think, should be taken before we go in for the individual firm level branding. Firm level branding is going to be difficult. See, today what is happening? Suppose if you are buying it from some kind of a supplier, right? Apart from, let us say, Amazon. When you are buying it from Amazon, when you find that, okay, Amazon is selling it to me, you don't know which private label is being taken and what is given to you. But still, you have a belief in Amazon. They have been able to create that kind of a brand equity among the buyers. Similarly, when these platforms can create it, right, I think the government should have a concrete efforts to build this kind of a thing. Country branding is going to be very important to start with. Before we then go in for the individual firms, when they scale up, definitely they will be forced to go for a branding to make that differentiation. Right, definitely they will be doing it, okay, out of force. Even if you don't like it, if you want to be one among the crowd, fine. If you don't want to be, then naturally you have to do that kind of a distinction. But to break this ice, because other players are also there, other countries are also there, and India is also going to be there, I feel that there should be a good kind of an effort which should come from the government in ensuring that a country branding is being done by organizing, especially let us say apparels. We can do separately. For others, let us say B2B, let us say auto components, etc. Right? For that also we may be able to do. Definitely it can be done with the kind of a decentralization, what is happening in terms of exports, etc. by the central government, assuming a lot of, giving a lot of responsibility to state governments also. I think probably these things can be further decentralized, so that there can be different thinking and the states can compete and then try to brand themselves better as a country. And that is how I think branding can happen in this.
Thank you so much, sir. Deep, any views from you on do's and don'ts of branding, maybe, because a lot of SMEs may find it challenging and they're used to traditional ways of doing business internationally.
Well, I can just talk on behalf of the D2C ecosystem. I think as far as the basics of branding are concerned, we are fine. What we need is perhaps, like Mr. Wahi said, a single window facility, if possible, to facilitate, this the fulfillment part of reaching out to our customers. So perhaps if it is an industry that has to be picked, I would request Rajat sir to recommend the D2C Export Promotion Council so that we can start selling our products to the world.
I agree. That seems to be a much needed thing. Dr. Rangarajan, one more thing, because we always study about these things in exports, that when you are exporting to the market, there are export regulations, payment mechanism issues, logistics issues, there are SPS, TBT barriers. So in a cross-border e-commerce framework, how do these get addressed, and how can companies tackle these challenges, because they don't change even if you are using this model?
Yeah. See, as far as the compliance certification issues are concerned, an export transaction is an export transaction, whether it is happening through e-commerce or Anyhow, it is crossing the borders. So naturally, all those regulations are going to be there. See, this is where I was in the initial part also, I was saying, our preparedness to meet these kind of challenges, right? See, for example, in a typical e-commerce transaction, the regulatory area is on, see, of course, we talk about the material flow, information flow, revenue flow, etc. I'm not getting into that. But look at the e-signature. How many of the SMEs, etc., may be able to do that, and it is getting verified that the e-signatures are being done, so that the regulatory bodies which are looking at it. See, currently you are going to have what is happening in the current physical form. You have a shipping bill. The shipping bill is signed. There is a vetting which is being done. Everything is being done. But now, to what extent these are all being digitized? And it is not only about you digitizing, how comfortable the exporters are in using this. See, that is going to be more important. See, a person who is sitting in Ludhiana, a person who is sitting in Kanpur, and a person who is sitting in Tirupur who are exporting and participating in e-commerce export should be comfortable in understanding the e-transactions, e-payments, the e-signatures, etc. Otherwise, what may happen is, as usual, I'll be always looking for, because a businessman is a businessman. He'll be always looking for a person who can provide solutions to him. So that will be increasing the transaction cost. Naturally, when I educate you, I'll be charging something from you, which will be loaded onto your cost. Then your cost competitiveness, which will get impacted. So that one is the first thing what I feel is. Secondly, the regulatory framework, what is now we are lacking in the regulatory framework is, see, in e-commerce, definitely, whether it is e-commerce or not a traditional export also, multimodal transport is involved. Right. So now, to what extent that is integrated in India? Are we still having, suppose if I start my goods from Kanpur factory, it goes to, let us say, Germany. Will I be able to travel with a single logistics document which is accepted by every authority? Even within India, they don't accept it. So that is essential. This is going to be essential, which has been already aired. I think probably we need to address this. This is again a documentation regulation, right? So the e-shipping bills, right? Whether we are, see, this is what I said, regulatory issues, we are still doing it in bits and pieces. Of course, now I think the postal department is also actively involved in understanding the logistics issues, so that even the logistics secretary is now, we have a logistics department separately under secretary. They are working on it, but it has to speed up so that the physical flow, whatever is going to happen, anyhow, there is going to be a physical flow of good. We cannot say that everything is online and it is going to travel and you will be experiencing, you get an e-experience of a product. You have to have the physical experience of the product, whatever you're buying. Am I right? So naturally, that flow is going to be there. So that is the second issue, what I say is the logistics part of it. To what extent it has to be digitized. Whenever we are digitizing, it is not about the superiority of the technology. It is more about the acceptance of the different documents by the different agencies which are involved. Right? Can I now travel from one place to the other place in a single document? That is what is going to be more important. Third is about the exchange, RBI, customs, etc. The foreign exchange, what is involved in that? Am I going to, suppose if I am doing a kind of a transaction, like I already told you, a return policy. Suppose if it is coming back, I'm ready to take it. When am I going to get the credit for that? See, while I was sending it, suppose if it is worth $100, there is a duty on that. Now it is coming back to me. So now, will I be getting any credit for this? To what extent it will be there? Whether the cost, whatever I'm going to incur to get it back, will there be any kind of an incentive by which I may be able to cover this? That is also to be addressed. That is another practical problem which is going to be in the e-commerce, this thing. See, sorry. The third is about regulating the different platforms. That is also going to be important. See, one of the thing what I was thinking loudly, and I was making some suggestions also. Will we be able to have the same way what Mr. Rajat was saying about for everything we say a single window? can there be a single window which can address these practical regulatory issues which can be addressed? Say, for example, it may be even your Trade Promotion Council of India. Can't it be a single window which channelize all these kind of issues? Otherwise, now what is happening is I have to run from pillar to post. If I don't know anything, then I go to eBay, Amazon, etc. Because these fulfillment centers will help me. I need not bother about anything. They will take care of the other things. So that is what is going to happen. If that happens, e-commerce will definitely happen. But will we be able to achieve that magic figure and that kind of a scale? And see, the scale is going to be, see, that is what I am worried about. I am not worried about whether e-commerce will happen, whether India will be able to encash. Definitely, there are more thieves in India who will definitely take these kind of opportunities. There are more Venkats who are there in India who can give a lot of great this thing. Right, but will we be able to achieve that kind of a volume which matches the mammoothness of this country and the capabilities of this country? See, that is going to be one of the important things. There are definitely a lot of regulatory issues which are to be considered, which currently in the physical format is easier because you have different agencies which are there, by which you may be able to have a DGC, a DGFT, then customs clearance is there, the port authorities are there, the shipping agency is there. There are so many agencies which are there, they all get into this. But the thing is, when it happens in a digital way, to what extent all of them are there, to what extent the importers and exporters are comfortable with this platform. In fact, it involves even a global level protocols also in this. When we are talking about data security, digitalization of some of these kind of the validity of these legality of these kind of transactions, etc. The protocols are also to be, we have to adhere to. Though a lot of countries have already started doing it, like what the Rajat and what Mr. Venkat was saying, Japan, New Zealand, Australia, these guys have already started doing that and they have already gone into those kind of conventions. Whether we have taken part in those kind of conventions, being a signatory to it, and then try to set the ball rolling. Because at the end of the day, whether you are a small or a big exporter, you are always interested to get your money back with a profit. Right. That too within the time what is stipulated to me. Because I am not here to do a charity. Right. So that I am very clear. The businessman's business logic will always win. Right. That is what is my take.
Dr. Saab,
yeah.
If I may add, Dr. Saab, Virat, if you allow me.
Sure, please.
As of today, sir, if I get any product returned from international, I am also supposed to pay duty on my own products. That's how, the customs is working. So just to say that it's not only that we are sending it, but if it comes back, the custom here,
that is where the problem
back is charging.
Yes.
Duty. I mean, I paid duty on my own products. And that's why we are now, if there's anything, we just discard it international. So I think, yeah, if there could be just single window and somebody who can facilitate all of this, because local custom officers, they don't listen also. Even if we show that, these are our own documents, it came and it came back, we still had to pay duty on our own products. Yeah.
That is the problem. In fact, that is what Mr. Deep, I know some of the cases where they just threw it in the dustbin. They say,
that also happened.
If you don't want to use, just throw it in your dustbin. Please don't send it back to me. Because I have to pay more.
It's more expensive to bring it back. It's a point well taken. Thank you so much. Actually, this is a very interesting discussion, and it's just for the lack of time, we'll have to quickly wrap it now. But any closing remarks from any of the panelists? I would request you to please welcome you to say anything you would like to add to the points made during the presentation. Vahi sir, anything you would like to add?
No, nothing from my side. I think lots of great thoughts and ideas. Clearly, the solution is there to see, and everybody can see it, and not just us. I'm sure all the exporters and SMEs who are operating on the platforms, who are looking at getting India to that $5 trillion economy. Everybody has those. I think it'll be good to just see if we can implement a few of these and make it easy for businesses to really export out of India on the various e-commerce opportunities.
Right. And I think Mr. Venkat is typing an answer to this. There's a question on how we can compete with these small sellers and also be able to abide with compliances, local rules and regulations. So anybody would like to take that up?
No, I'm not getting that question. What is the question, Virati?
The question is how can we compete with those small sellers in what I presume destination markets, and also be able to abide with compliances with local laws and regulations. So a dual challenge for SMEs there: competition and regulation in an overseas market.
Yeah. See, as far as the compliance in the importing destinations are concerned, the cost of compliance will remain the same, whether it is going to be a physical form or it is an e-commerce form, right? So that means if you are talking about some of the non-tariff barriers, which are costing you more for compliance, etc., I don't think we may be able to do anything except going in for the kind of certifications that are required to meet those things. So definitely, yes, it is going to be a challenge for your price, thin margins, etc., because you may not be able to go for a competing prices. But as for the smallness or the bigness is concerned, I don't think that it is going to have any major say. Right? See, today, when you find that, like I'm talking about some of the players from.
Okay, so just a moment. I just want to inform everyone, Deep is just headed to a flight, so I'll just ask him, you can please leave the presentation. Thank you so much for
thanks,
being with us today.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Rajat sir. Thank you, Venkat sir. Thank you, Dr. Saab. And I hope you guys are able to help us form a policy where startups are also involved in suggesting the small startups. The bigger guys make policy according to their convenience. The smaller ones, and we're happy to share bucket loads of lists. But thank you for having us over, and thank you so much for organizing this.
Thank you, Deep. Thank you. Pleasure.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye. Bye, bye, guys.
Yeah, see, I'll just continue and complete it
just
quickly.
Sorry for that.
I said that the size of the firm, of course, may not be that much important when it comes to the destination markets. The reason what I said is, see, you look at some of the new players, small players who are emerging from Cambodia and beating us in apparel market in e-commerce. See, cross-border trade. There are small firms from Cambodia and specialized, like let us say some of the what they say, the baby wear, or it is in ties, or it is in handkerchiefs, etc. I'm going into very specific products. See, can you beat it? See, we are talking about handkerchiefs and silk ties. The single products, which is at the in international terminology, it goes into HS 8-digit, 10-digit level, and there are very small players who are doing it, right? And we who are holding a better kind of a hold on some of these kind of products, especially kids wear, etc., we are losing it out, though we are big. So it is more about how do we create that appeal in the market and the quality of your product. And compliance is going to be similar for everyone. I don't think that the cost of compliance will vary.
Right.
Yeah.
Venkat, any closing thoughts or remarks you'd like to make?
No, not any closing thoughts kind of thing. But I think just adding to what Dr. Ranga said, right? Our domestic market is big, right? So a lot of the brands end up focusing more on domestic. And unlike in Cambodia kind of place where the domestic market is small, they have to export to scale. So mother being the necessity of invention, people don't actually, in India, we have to, when you come out and see that the global market, India is only 4% or so of the global market. So that itself tells you there's a 25x, which is out there. And even some markets will give you a big push up. So I think if the government can look at schemes and mechanisms to create the branding and create the processes to enable, I think the opportunity is very, very big. One thing is clear, a lot of the younger brands are very clearly targeting this. Right. So it is about how do we facilitate this and create a mechanism by which we can create global brands, and look at the number of unicorns and number of listings which are happening. Means irrespective of some slips here and there, the path is very clear. There are global brands which are going to come out of India in a big way. So we need to enable that through the processes.
Right. I think there are lots of questions still coming in. How to manage cost of shipping? I think that's pretty much the same for everybody. But when you're with a platform, how does that change? If you're a platform like Amazon, obviously there's aggregation involved.
No, cost of shipping also, each of the area is aggregated anyway, right? So which means you got to think of your cost as your product cost plus the shipping cost plus the duties. So that's your base cost for the target market. So you have to see whether then you can compete. You can't obviously be competitive in every market. So you got to think of it, that being the base and the payments which the revenue which you can generate in the market. Look at the competition of similar products or products in that category. What are the price points at which they're selling, and figure out whether you have a play. So some places you will have a play, some places you will not. So that is one obvious way you have to, even the unit economics has to work.
Right,
okay.
right.
And the second aspect, of course, is if you are well funded, you can actually create your brand in a market. You know that you will take some time, but based on the size of the market, you would do it. And you would possibly think of, can I actually, do trade licenses and manufacture it somewhere else, and make it easier for me to ship from there. But that's all second step, right? When we are talking of much bigger brands. So, but I would say you have to, shipping cost, obviously you will configure into the cost.
Right, absolutely. Right, sir. That brings us to the end of this very interesting session. And thank you so much. I think Rajat sir also seems to have an issue with his connection. But anyways, we are at the end of the session. And
my laptop just died. So
okay,
my
no
laptop
problem,
just died. So I'll just put that up.
Okay, no problem.
No.
Yeah.
Virat, any questions which are there which we have not answered, if we can list them, happy to do a response to all of them.
Absolutely, sir, absolutely. We'll be constantly in touch, and this is just a beginning for our engagement on this topic. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks
Virat, for organizing that.
Thank you, sir. It's been a pleasure, sir. Thank you.
Namaskar.
Thank you.